afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Teams in 20. Today, we've got a super exciting session on PowerPoint top tips and tricks, part 2. PowerPoint, we use it every day, and it's going to be a really exciting session. So welcome back, and I hope you enjoy it. So yeah, top tips and tricks of PowerPoint with Daria today. So thank you so much, Daria, for leading the session. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Perfect, thank you. So today's session, thanks a lot. First of all, thanks a lot for the intro, Annabelle. Today's session is PowerPoint. Again, remember a few weeks ago, maybe you have joined that session. If you haven't, I really encourage you to have a look at that. We had a first round of PowerPoint tips and tricks, but there were so many things that we wanted to talk about and so many great things that you can do with PowerPoint, and it's actually never enough, if you ask me. I read somewhere that we actually are using 10% of the capabilities of the apps. And it would be great to learn more about them, obviously, and use all of it. But because we had so many tips and tricks back then, we decided to do a second round of tips and tricks. It's kind of season 2 of this series that we're creating. So today we're going to be speaking about the 4 top PowerPoint tips and tricks of Jo. Unfortunately, she cannot be with us today, but she did ensure to create the demos for you. So we're going to walk you through those tips that she found very useful for her. And then if you have joined the session last time, you might remember that one of the last tips that I personally talked about before going over time and getting Jo speed up through her slides was the accessibility checker, right? So it's one of the features that I really encourage everyone to use more and to be a bit more aware on, considering how much we use PowerPoint these days and how important it is to create accessible content for everybody. I think that feature becomes more and more relevant, and sometimes we just forget about it, myself included. So this is also a refresher for me too. So we're going to jump into the accessibility checker a little bit more, and then conclude with some resources and upcoming sessions. With that being said, let me go to the first tip that Jo has prepared for us. So for the next few tips, we really wanted to cover some of the features that are rarely spoken about, but could really help you with your PowerPoint, right? So the first one is about the removing the slide notes from a presentation. Jo has added on the slide how you can do it as well. So let me quickly go to the demo. Hopefully you can hear it. Let me know.
When I create my decks, I often have a number of notes on each slide so I can remember what the points are and the key messaging I wanted to get across. Now, when I share the decks, I don't really want to share all my notes with them. So I will look for a way to get rid of all the notes quite quickly. And the best way I have found to do this is by clicking File. Then you go to Info. Then you go to check for issues and inspect document. Now, it will check this document for lots of different things, especially comments as well. It might be something you want to get rid of. So I'm going to click inspect, and then I can see no comments were found, but it has found that I had some presentation notes that I might want to get rid of. I can quickly just say remove all. And if I re-inspect now, it's not going to find any notes. And if I go back to my presentation, you'll see my notes have now gone.
This was the first one on removing slide notes. We all know sometimes when you have chunky presentations with many slides, obviously you add the notes, and removing those notes, perhaps because you want to share that presentation with someone else, but you do not want them to have access to the notes. It can be tedious, but with this one, now you can easily remove them. Let's move on to the second tip that Jo has prepared. So this is about media, right? And about creating videos. With lots more videos and PowerPoint presentations, they often become really big and often too big to share. So in this specific tip, Jo is going to take you through some of the options to create your video, but also to compress your video.
Couple of things I might want to do with this deck. First of all, I might actually want to compress it down because this deck contains a number of videos. So let me show you how I do that. I can go to File and Info, and because this has got media in it, I get this compress media option. If it didn't have those videos, you wouldn't see this button. And if I click on that, you can see I can save space by moving it to 1080p. I can move it to a lower quality, which is 720. It's a bit more like how you would see it if it was streamed over the internet. And then if I really need to cut it back, I can bring it down to 480. and they're recommending that is better for email. So couple of ways just to compress. There's also a great link here that takes you to some more guidance on how you can maybe compress your presentations. Now, another thing I might want to do is save my file as a video file. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to Export. So I click Export. You see I've got a few different options here. And one of those is to create a video. I've also got the option to create an animated GIF, but create a video, and I could decide what kind of video that I want it to be. 4K, 1080p, 720. You get the idea. I can also decide, do I want the time user narrations to be followed? And how much time do I want each slide to appear on the screen? This is really great if you are creating a kind of show reel for an event that you're doing and you just want to have that video playing in the background.
So let's move on to the third tip that Joe has prepared for us, and that's setting up slideshows. So for this specific tip, we're going to only have this slide that Joe has added. But once I switch back to my live demo, I'll show you where to find this and where this icon, where this window is popping up. So the thing here is, if you use multiple screens, one tip that Joe has found is the ability to set your monitor and resolution to a default before you actually present that presentation, right? So in some cases, you may also want to have kind of a loop, if we can call it that, a loop of the presentation if you have a show reel at an event, right? And you've also got options to switch off animations if that's something that you're interested in. Maybe you're presenting someone else's deck and perhaps you're not familiar, right, with the timings, or maybe you just don't want to use animations for accessibility reasons. I remember when I was a kid and I was learning how to use PowerPoint, I was adding animations to literally every single thing that was on my slide, including words, titles. If it could have an animation on it, I would definitely go for it. And I'm really apologizing to my teacher for having to look at that presentation because it was not accessible at all. But this is something that we can now fix with the feature that we're going to see in a second. And now let me move to something really interesting, right? Copilot, right? The star of the show. Let's have a look at Copilot in PowerPoint and how you can leverage it. So Joe has listed 10 things that you can use Copilot for in PowerPoint right now, and you'll see some of them in the demo that she has put together for us today.
So I'm just going to show you a couple of quick things in Copilot for PowerPoint. So if I open a new deck and I select PowerPoint at that end bar there, you'll see I've got a few things. I can create a presentation, I can create a presentation file, I can ask about this slide. Down here, I can get some prompts, so it gives me some ideas of what I might ask, and then I can ask directly as well. So I'm going to start off with create a presentation about the awesome Manchester United FC, including trophy wins and history. So let's just see what it comes up with. Excellent. So it has given me 10 slides that it thinks I might find useful. So the early years, fantastic. Not sure what that's a picture of, but I'm pretty sure that I can go in and change that. Talks about Munich disaster, talks about Sir Alex. That is not a picture of Sir Alex though, so I definitely need to go in and change that. Talks about the treble. I mean, it's pretty good. Like you've got to be pretty happy with that. It's a great starting point. See, there's certain things that, like, the club's nickname is the Red Devils. Yes, it is, but why do you have a picture of a sheep? And it's obviously mixing football up for rugby, but you get the idea. It's definitely given me something to work with. So why don't I just ask a couple of more things from it? I could say add swivel animation to the image on this slide. Let's see what we get. See, I get a spinning ball, which is great. I could also say add a bit of information about the class of 92. Okay, so I've got a bit more information on the class of 92. For my second example, we're going to create a presentation from a file. So I've gone back into Copilot, clicked presentation from a file, and you'll see here it's giving me this / I've got a link to a document. I'm just going to show you what that document looks like. It's a fairly chunky document. It's 12 pages. It's got lots of images, lots and lots of text. So this could take a little while. So I might need to just speed this up a bit. So I'm going to press go. Okay, and it's come up with an outline of the document, which was a lot. And it's now come up with 39 slides. So it's taken lots of things out of this deck and put them into some sort of order. Now I obviously can go in and I can change some of this, and I can also use Designer to maybe help me.
Awesome. So that was a sneak peek into what Copilot can do in PowerPoint when it comes to creating presentation. And as Joe has mentioned, if you are using Copilot right now, it really provides a good starting point, as in creates a structure, a draft for you. The only thing that I do want to mention here, and I always kind of mention it when it comes to Copilot, is that the result is not meant to be perfect, right? This is not the final presentation that you would be sending to someone. This is just a first step into helping you create that presentation faster. And it really depends on how you work, right? For me, for example, when I open up a presentation and I see that blank slide, I just have a blank moment in my head because I don't know where to start. So Copilot is really helping me out, creating that draft where I can start editing and add stuff. Obviously, if Copilot mixes up things, which sometimes happens, obviously, because we're still working on making it as close as we can to perfection. But it's there to help you out, right? It's there to provide a helping hand in the process of creating something. And again, for people who don't really know where to start, I'm a very good example of that. This is really saving some time and also saving some energy that I can put into actually making that even better. And we can also use it with Designer, right? Prior to Copilot, Designer was my best friend because I do spend a lot of time in PowerPoint. So now they can be best friends and I can use both of them. Last but not the least, the accessibility tracker, right? So this is a slide familiar to you if you have attended the previous session on PowerPoint, but pretty much what it does is check your presentation for issues that might make it difficult for someone with a disability to read or to understand. And it also provides suggestions for fixing any issues that it might find. Where you can access it, you can just type accessibility checker in the search bar in PowerPoint, and then it's going to pop up, or you can go to the review tab on the left-hand corner and access it from there. But with that being said, and we have a few minutes left, let me stop sharing my screen and share my actual screen where we're going to take a look together at some of the presentations that I have. Oh, right. So I think this is the presentation that I've shared last time, but again, because I was out of time, I didn't have the minutes to actually walk you through it. But this is a presentation about an Insights to Viva Insights that I've delivered a while ago. And as I've mentioned, you can type it in the search bar in here, accessibility checker, right? And you can just click on it, or you can go to the review tab and access it from here. And all you have to do is just click on it, right? And now there are some results that I have received from the inspection. These things in general, you'll see according to the presentations, you might have errors, warnings, and you also have tips. For this one, I don't really have any tip, but I do have some errors that I have to fix and some warnings that I need to be aware of, right? So if I click on this one, it's missing object description. If I click on the diagram 5, the slide 3, this is really difficult to understand. So I should add a description to this, right? Or if it's something that it's decorative, I can definitely mark it as a decorative if it's a picture that doesn't really send any message. But in this case, it's a picture that actually explains the Microsoft Viva modules. You can see that this is an old presentation because we have a few more modules now and a few more applications to the Viva suite. But what I can do here is add a description and say this diagram represents the Viva suite, which includes its alternative text, 5 pillars, mention the pillars. I'm writing this so that we can be done faster. And this is it. I've done that. Or again, if it's decorative, you can mark it as decorative and just close it. and it's going to disappear, right? If I click on slide 4, it's exactly the same thing for the different diagrams that I have here. Slide diagram 6. So again, this is Viva modules, this is the Viva apps. I need to add a description to this so I make it more accessible, right? If I go further to text placeholder, again, I can add it as a decorative or add a description if it's a picture that is here. Obviously, this is just a design, so I can just say mark as decorative. Let's move on to missing slide title. On slide 4, it hasn't really interpreted as this one being the slide title, right? And there's nothing here. So what I can do is just click on set as slide title, and it will take this text here as the title itself, and then it's going to be added. Let me move to warnings, right? Check reading order. So if I go to slide 3, what is actually the reading order of these things? Where do I start? Is it engagement? Is it well-being? Is it knowledge? Is it objective learning? Again, if someone cannot see this slide or they have a visual impairment, right? This can be difficult to understand. This is not accessible. So I should understand, I should mention where I'm starting to read this content from. So this is one thing. There's one slight error that this presentation has not, the accessibility checker has not identified, but probably the reason for that is because I have changed it a few seconds before opening this slide deck and doing this demo for you. But if you look at this slide, there's a big problem. The contrast is almost impossible to read, right? So what I have to do in here, and normally what the accessibility checker does, but I think it didn't see this specific change. Again, it was super fast, is to advise me to change the color of this to something else, maybe to a darker color, right? So that it would be more accessible for everyone. Because if I leave it here, probably you can sense that it says Daria and Cloud Solution Architect, but that's quite an effort that you have to make to see that kind of information. And again, these kind of stuff appears into the accessibility checker. We can move on to the second one, and this is an example that I want to show and that I'm going to pass on to Annabelle for closing the session. If I click on review, this is what you want to see every time you build a presentation on PowerPoint, right? Whether it's a 10-slide one, a 5-slide one, a 20-slide one, this is the message that we want before we share this presentation with anyone else. And the last thing here, what I wanted to show is if you go to the slideshow, setup slideshow, this is where you see the pop-up screen that it was on Joe's slides. So this is where you can find it. I just wanted to show you in PowerPoint specifically. And that's pretty much it on my side.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Daria. Yeah, such a great session. Amazing. Thank you so much. I particularly love the accessibility focus as well. It's, it's something that we always need to think about, but maybe don't always think about. So really good just to bring that highlight back. And of course, Copilot. It's incredible and it just keeps on getting better. So really good to bring some focus back to that as well. Thank you so much. Daria's kindly shared some amazing useful resources here as well. So some support on PowerPoint, Windows training that you can share to your teams as well, and also some PowerPoint help and learning too. And once again, that's the end of the session. So thank you so much, everybody, for spending your lunchtime with us. If you do have any feedback or have any topics that you'd like us to cover in the future, please do scan the QR code. We do check it, we do listen, and it would be great to have your feedback. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. And thank you again, Daria. Have a lovely week, everyone.